Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. According to previews for The Young and the Restless, Nick Newman will be hurt during an escape attempt, prompting Sally Spectra and Sharon Newman to take action. After Carter compels Nick and Sharon to go on house arrest, they will be stuck and unable to find a way out. Of course, Kane Ashby's guests haven't exactly been free since they were stranded on a mountain with no mobile contact, but Sharon and Nick will face a far more dire confinement situation. Sharon may be experiencing déjà vu, as she has been kept captive far too many times in recent months. It'll happen again, but Nick vows to get them out of there. Unfortunately, an armed security guard will make this easier said than done. Plus, there's a killer on the loose who could exacerbate the danger, so Nick will be taking significant risks when attempting to discover a way out. Nick's escape attempt is doomed to fail in some way. According to YNR teasers, Nick will be injured, escalating the situation. Whether the security guard or the killer hits, Nick will be left with a nasty cut on his side. That will leave Nick in need of medical attention, which he will not be able to obtain right away. Fortunately, Nick will still receive some aid. Sally will somehow join the picture and assist Nick by applying pressure to his wound. No matter how the story unfolds, Sharon and Sally will be there for hurt Nick as he cope with his bungled getaway. It's evident that the plot in France is about to grow even more hectic, so we'll keep you updated on all of the exciting developments. Nick Newman's statement in court sent shockwaves through Genoa City, leaving everyone in the courtroom and watching at home astonished as he disclosed 5 startling truths that no one expected. The dramatic moment developed with tension so thick it could be cut with a knife, as Nick, who is usually so composed, delivered each revelation with such gravity that the room fell silent. The first truth he revealed was that he knew about Victor's covert ties with Ashland Locke long before the rest of the family did, and that he had purposefully kept it hidden to spare Victoria from additional heartache. Victoria's jaw dropped at the admission, her eyes sparking with betrayal as she realized her own brother had been complicit in keeping her from learning the truth about the guy she once loved. The second revelation was even more shocking. Nick admitted that he was the one who surreptitiously funded Sharon's new wellness facility, not as a charity gesture, but because he discovered evidence that Adam was controlling her financial decisions behind the scenes. Adam's expression was comical, a mix of wrath and amazement, as Nick revealed his brother's conniving ways in front of the entire courtroom. But it was Nick's third revelation that truly threw the room into disarray. He admitted that he had been in contact with Jordan throughout the period she was supposedly dead, and that he had helped fake her death to protect Claire from further abuse. Claire, sitting in the gallery, gasped and held her chest, her eyes wide with uncertainty and pain. Jordan's menacing smirk from the defendant's table further contributed to the frightening mood, as Nick's statements revealed that the Newman family's greatest enemy had been pulling strings from behind the scenes all along. The fourth revelation was possibly the most personal. Nick admitted that he had been dealing with a gambling addiction for years, nearly destroying his relationship with Chelsea and their kid, Connor. Chelsea, sitting in the front row, wiped away tears as Nick's voice broke with emotion, exposing how near he was to losing everything. Just as the courtroom thought the surprises had ended, Nick revealed his fifth and most shocking truth. He had been working with an unknown ally to bring down Jordan once and for all, and that ally was none other than the mystery masked man who had been lurking around Genoa City. As if on cue, the courtroom doors sprang open, and the masked figure stepped in, commanding immediate attention. The room erupted in whispers as he gently removed his mask, revealing a visage that left everyone speechless. Though his identity is still a well-held secret for the time being, the implications of his association with Nick point to a much greater plot. Nick's testimony sparked an instant and passionate response. Victoria was divided between rage and appreciation, unable to accept that her brother had both deceived and attempted to protect her. Adam, ever the thinker, was already planning his next move, understanding Nick had outmaneuvered him in ways he hadn't expected. Claire, reeling from the revelation about Jordan, appeared on the edge of a breakdown, while Jordan wore a smirk that suggested she had anticipated this turn of events all along. Meanwhile, Chelsea's anguish was evident, her faith in Nick rattled but not completely shattered, leaving the door open for either reconciliation or more upheaval. Then there was the masked man, whose unexpected entrance created more questions than answers. Who was he, really? What was his link with Jordan? Why had Nick chosen now to expose their alliance? The timing indicated that this was simply the beginning of a far greater conflict, one that would entangle the Newmans, Abbotts, and the entire city in a web of deception, vengeance, and redemption. As the judge called for order, the camera panned across the astonished faces in the courtroom, everyone absorbing Nick's revelations in their own unique manner, each realizing that nothing in Genoa City would ever be the same again. The episode concluded on a cliffhanger, with the masked man muttering something to Nick just before the screen went black, leaving viewers eagerly anticipating the next chapter. One thing was certain, Nick's testimony had altered everything, and the consequences would be felt for weeks. Jordan's plotting continued, Claire's devotion was called into question, and the masked man's exact intentions remained unknown, setting the scenario for an explosive confrontation. CBS's The Young and the Restless had once again delivered a stunning twist, demonstrating that in Genoa City, the truth was always more dangerous than falsehoods. Fans instantly flocked to social media to speculate on the identity of the masked man. Was it someone from the past, a supposed dead enemy, or an altogether new player in the game? Theories varied from the return of a long-lost character to a surprise twin reveal, but one thing was clear, no one expected this. Nick's decision to reveal his secrets in court was risky, but he was clearly at a breaking point. It was unclear whether this would eventually bring his family together or tear them apart, but one thing was certain, the Newman dynasty was about to face its most serious challenge yet. With Victor's legacy on the line and the younger generation compelled to face their own issues, the courtroom drama was only the beginning. The masked man's entrance heralded a new period of instability, and as the credits rolled, viewers were left with a chilling realization, no one was safe in Genoa City, and the next betrayal might come from anyone, even those closest to you. As the story progresses, alliances shift, new foes arise, and old wounds are wrenched open. Nick's 5 facts were simply the first domino to fall in a chain reaction that would forever alter Genoa City. And now that the masked man was involved, the true question was not just who he was, but also how far he was willing to go and who would be left standing when the dust fell. One thing was certain, The Young and the Restless had just experienced one of its most memorable moments in years, and the aftermath would be must-see television. Nick Newman stood in the center of the courtroom, the polished floor beneath him gleaming under the strong lights, as everyone in attendance became silent. His jaw was hard, fists clenched at his sides, and, despite his poise, his voice trembled slightly with the weight of what he was going to say. The Newmans were rarely dragged into court for this type of scrutiny, but today was not about business. It was personal. The gallery was full with recognizable figures from Genoa City, all seated and whispering while waiting. Sharon, seated next Faith, leaned forward slightly, her gaze scanning his face for hints about what he was concealing. Victoria sat stoically, her arms crossed protectively, while Victor Newman's visage was as cold as granite. Adam leaned up close behind them, curiosity and calculating flaring in his eyes like twin flames. The trial had already been tumultuous, but no one anticipated what Nick was about to say. His voice bounced off the high ceilings as he turned toward the jury box, speaking clearly and methodically, as if each syllable had a piece of the shattered puzzle they'd all been attempting to understand. "There are 5 things you don't know about the night in question," he said. "And I'm going to tell them now, not for me or the Newmans, but because someone in this room deserves to know the truth. Because justice depends on it." The judge leaned in slightly, eliciting whispers around the courtroom. Nick's attorney appeared frightened, while the opposing counsel sat forward, evidently taken off guard. Even Lily, sitting on the row behind the Newmans, stiffened, her lips separating slightly. Nick did not look at anyone directly. Instead, he concentrated on a point just beyond the jury box, as if centering himself in something invisible, something sacred. "The first fact," he explained, "is that I was not where everyone thought I was. I told the cops I was at the ranch that night, but this was not true. I was following somebody. Someone I suspected might be attempting to harm my family. And that someone was Kane Ashby. Gasps echoed throughout the room, like flocks of startled birds. Kane sat up straight in his seat, his eyes narrowing, but he did not speak. I saw him meeting with a man in a mask, Nick said, his voice becoming steadier. Not simply a typical ski mask or balaclava. This was a special item, black, tight-fitting, with silver stitching around the borders. He wasn't simply shielding his face. He was sending a message. Nick paused and took a breath. The judge hadn't interrupted yet, so she was letting him go on record with this. The second fact struck even harder. Who is that man with the mask? He was no stranger to me. I recognized how he moved. The way he stood. And I recognized his voice. Nick's gaze surveyed the courtroom, pausing briefly on Adam before proceeding. It was somebody I knew. Someone from the past. Someone we thought had vanished. A lengthy, electrifying quiet ensued. Sharon's hand rose to her mouth. I believe that man was Ian Ward. This time, the courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel 3 times to restore order, but it took nearly a minute for everyone to breathe again. Ian Ward, the cult leader, manipulator, and predator, was supposed to be dead. Years ago, reports spread that he had died in a fire. But Nick's certainty was unshakable. He's not dead, Nick stated quietly now. He's been operating in the shadows. And he's returned to Genoa City. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Newman, are you willing to provide any evidence to back up your claim? Not yet, Nick confessed. But I've got a source. Someone came forward anonymously. They emailed me photographs. One of them depicts the masked man removing a bit of his disguise. And that's him. I'd bet everything I own on it. No one dared to comment. Nick stated that the third truth was the most difficult to admit. I helped conceal something my father done. Something that could have impacted the outcome of this case weeks ago. A tremendous pulse of anxiety sounded throughout the room. Victor furrowed his brow profoundly, and Victoria inhaled loudly, tightening her grip on the bench's edge. He knew about Ian. He received information months ago that Ian could still be alive and plotting something in Genoa City. Instead of going to the authorities, he buried it. He claimed it was to safeguard us and prevent panic. But in doing so, he let Ian come closer. To manipulate. To create this whole affair. Victor didn't say anything, but his eyes revealed something, a glimmer of sorrow, perhaps, or a resigned acceptance of what was now happening. The fourth truth, Nick began, pausing long enough for everyone to lean forward to hear, is that Audra Charles was also aware of the masked man. She not only knew, but she also assisted him. Murmurs again. Kyle Abbott stood up in the gallery, visibly rattled. She was working with him, Nick explained. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure how deep it went. But I've got messages. Emails. She utilized a burner account to organize meetings and drop-offs. She channeled information. She's not simply complicit. She's center. Audra, seated near the back with an unraveling calm, shook her head slightly, mouthing no as if in protest. But the harm had been done. The whispers in the room turned into a deep roar. Finally, Nick took one more breath, bracing himself for the fifth and final truth. The last thing, he added, his voice cracking slightly, is concerning my sister. About Victoria. Victoria looked up, surprised, her stoicism temporarily pierced. She also knew Ian Ward was alive. And she did not inform anyone. Because she believed she could manage him. She believed she could outmaneuver him. Nick, Victoria's voice was tense, but she did not continue her statement. She met with him secretly. At Lakeview Hotel. 3 times. Nick's voice broke with pain. I discovered out 2 days ago. She confessed to me personally. She believed she was protecting the family. That if she could outwit him, he'd leave us be. But it did not work. And now, he paused as the back door to the courtroom swung open with a loud creak. All heads turned as a towering figure approached, clad head to toe in black. And on his face was the identical silver-stitched mask Nick had mentioned. Audible gasps resonated. A woman shouted. The security guard reached for his handgun. However, the man gently lifted both hands in surrender, and despite the turmoil, he spoke only one thing. His voice was familiar, deep, and unmistakable. Everything he said is true. People stood up from their benches. Victor remained sitting, but his gaze focused on the masked man. The judge called for order, repeatedly slamming her gavel. Officers rushed toward the man, but he did not resist. He simply turned to Nick and remarked, "You're braver than your father." Nick remained motionless, staring at him. For a brief moment, the two guys locked eyes, as much as they could with the mask on, and an unsaid truth passed between them. Ian Ward, if it was him, had come not just to complete old business, but also to reveal the rot beneath the Newman's glitzy enterprise. As authorities restrained and began to remove the masked man from the room, the crowd erupted in speculating, shouting, and bewilderment. Sharon gripped Faith closely as Adam observed and calculated once again. Victoria hid her face into her hands. And Victor, the master of secrets, finally appeared shaken. The trial was no longer about a single case. It was about all of them. Every deception, treachery, and decision committed in the dark is finally brought to light. And Nick, standing alone in the middle of the courtroom, realized he had done something the rest of his family could never do. He had told the entire truth. Even if it meant destroying them.